Hello students, this is Mrs. Sonal Patil. We had begun with the chapter Human Health and Disease. In our last class, we studied about common protozoan disease, malaria. We have studied about amoebiosis. Then we have studied about helminth disease, ascariasis. And finally, we ended up with elephantiasis and fungal disease, that is ringworm disease. Up till here we covered in our last class. Maintenance of personal and public hygiene is very important for prevention and control of many infectious diseases. Measures for personal hygiene include keeping the body clean, consumption of clean drinking water, food, vegetables, fruits, etc. Public hygiene includes proper disposal of waste and excreta, periodic cleaning and disinfection of water reservoirs, pools, tanks, and observing standard practices of hygiene in public catering. These measures are particularly essential where the infectious agents are transmitted through food and water, such as typhoid, amoebiosis, ascariasis. In case of airborne diseases such as pneumonia and common cold, in addition to the above measures, close contact with infected persons or their belongings should be avoided. For diseases such as malaria and filariasis that are transmitted through insect vectors, the most important measure is to control or eliminate the vectors and their breeding places. This can be achieved by avoiding stagnation of water in and around residential areas, regular cleaning of household coolers, use of mosquito nets, introducing fishes like gambusia in ponds that feed on mosquito larvae, spraying of insecticides in ditches, drainage areas and swamps, etc. In addition, doors and windows should be provided with wire mesh to prevent the entry of mosquitoes. Such precautions have become all the more important, especially in the light of recent widespread incidences of vector-borne diseases like dengue and chikungunya in many parts of India. The advancement made in biological science have armed us to effectively deal with many infectious diseases. The use of vaccines and immunization programs have enabled us to completely eradicate a deadly disease like smallpox. A large number of other infectious diseases like polio, diphtheria, pneumonia and tetanus have been controlled to a large extent by the use of vaccines. Biotechnology is the verge of making available newer and safer vaccines. Discovery of antibiotics and various other drugs has also enabled us to effectively treat infectious diseases. So, public health measures, these are preventive measures against infectious diseases to prolong and improve life and good health. Firstly, awareness. General public should be made aware of infectious diseases, their mode of transmission and preventive measures through media, banners, etc., so that they protect themselves. Secondly, healthy practices. In order to safeguard ourselves from infections, we need to have healthy practices with good personal and public hygiene. Thirdly, personal hygiene. It requires keeping our bodies clean, eating nutritious food, drinking clean water, eating fresh fruits and vegetables, good exercise, adequate rest and learning to manage our stress. Use of mosquito nets at home can keep infections away. Thirdly, isolation. Compulsory isolation or voluntary keeping away from infected persons with contagious diseases like influenza, pneumonia, chicken pox, tuberculosis, etc. will prevent further infection. Fourthly, vaccination. Maintenance of effective preventive schedules of vaccinations against several infectious diseases such as smallpox, chicken pox, tuberculosis, etc. has helped to eradicate these diseases by acquiring passive immunization. Fifthly, antibiotics. These have also helped in treating infectious diseases while discovering of newer and safer drugs through modern biotechnological methods has contributed towards better health care. So these were the public health measures which are to be followed. Coming to the next part of the chapter is immunity. Every day we are exposed to a large number of infectious agents. However, only a few of these exposures result in disease. Why? This is due to the fact that the body is able to defend itself from most of these foreign agents. This overall ability of the host to fight the disease causing organism conferred by the immune system is called immunity. So the term immunity refers to the specific resistance exhibited by the host towards infections by microorganisms and their products. So it is, as I told you, it is the ability of the host to fight against the disease causing organisms, or it can be defined as resistant to disease. This immunity is broadly classified into two types, namely innate immunity and acquired immunity. So there are two types of immunity: innate immunity and acquired immunity. One by one we will discuss. The first is the innate immunity. As the name indicates, it is the present by birth. It is present by birth to protect oneself from potentially harmful microorganisms of the environment. It is a non-specific type of defense. There are no specific, or they are non-specific because they are effective against wide range of microbes with generalized effect. They are not directed against a specific agent. The effectiveness of innate immunity varies from person to person and depends on various factors. It is depending on various factors, this type of immunity. So this is accomplished by providing different types of barriers. It is providing different types of barriers to entry of foreign agents in our body. It is developed in an individual without having disease or immunization. It consists of four types of barriers. The first one is the physical barriers, are the physical barriers. Now these include structural and mechanical barriers, namely skin, mucous membranes, cilia, and certain mechanical actions. Skin on our body is the main barrier which prevents entry of the microorganisms. So it is acting as, so the skin is acting as body's first line of defense. Since it is an outermost tough impermeable barrier, so it is forming body's first line of defense against pathogen. It is intact and horny in nature due to the presence of hard insoluble fibrous protein called as keratin. So skin is the main barrier over here. Nextly, the mucus coating of the epithelium lining the respiratory, gastrointestinal and urogenital tracts also help in trapping microbes entering our body. So mucus is also providing, or it is mucus produced by the membranes lining the respiratory paths or the gastrointestinal and the urogenital tracts, trap the microorganisms and immobilizes them. Cilia lining the nasal passage traps dust particles and microorganisms. Those that escape are further trapped by the mucus secreted from the inner lining of the nasal passages and swept by the cilia towards the pharynx region. From here it is directed into esophagus and is eliminated through the feces. So mucus is again the next one. And as I told you, even mechanical actions are involved here. So mechanical movements like closure of eyelids, coughing and sneezing actions act as mechanical barriers in driving out the dust particles and the microorganisms that enter eyes, digestive and respiratory tracts. So these are the physical barriers which are included in the innate immunity. Second one are the physiological barriers. They include many of the physiological factors such as body temperature, pH of body fluids and various body secretions that prevent the growth of microorganisms and act as barriers. Acid in the stomach, saliva in the mouth, tears from eyes all prevent microbial growth. So as I told you, various body secretions are responsible for physiological barriers. Antibacterial enzyme like lysozyme present in tears, nasal secretions, saliva, human milk etc. brings about lysis or breakdown of the bacterial cell wall and acts as a bactericide. Human milk also has antibacterial substance called lactoferritin and neuramic acid. Mucus of saliva immobilize the microorganisms that enter the mouth. Still others which escape the action of saliva come under the action of gastric juices and bile. These juices kill the microorganisms and check their growth. So these are the physiological barriers. Then the next one are the cellular barriers. These are the internal defense barriers present in the body and form the second line of defense. They include certain types of WBCs like neutrophils, monocytes, macrophages which destroy microbes by phagocytosis, and a type of lymphocytes called natural killer which kill viruses by perforation. So here again I told you certain types of leukocytes, that is WBCs of our body, like polymorphonuclear leukocytes and monocytes and natural killers in the blood as well as macrophages in tissues can destroy the microbes. So these are the cellular barriers. Next one are the cytokinin barriers. These form a special line of defense. The cells invaded by the virus produce a large group of antiviral proteins like lymphokines, interferons, tumour necrosis factors etc. These proteins protect the non-infected cells from further viral infections and play major role in innate immune response. So these were the there were 4 types of barriers in the under innate immunity. The first one physical barrier, secondly physiological barrier, thirdly cellular barrier, and the fourth one was the cytokinin barriers. Coming to the second type of immunity is acquired immunity. Acquired immunity on the other hand is pathogen specific. So this type of immunity is pathogen specific. As the name indicates, it is acquired by an individual to protect oneself from potentially harmful organisms of the environment. It is effective against a specific pathogen and does not have generalized effect. It is effective against a specific pathogen, as I told you. It is characterized by memory, where the body has memory of first encounter, that is primary response with the pathogen, and defense, the greater intensified response, that is secondary response towards the subsequent attacks. They form the third line of defense in the body. This immune response is carried out by different types of cells. So here acquired immunity is nothing but it is, as it is also called as specific or adaptive immunity. It is, as I told you, it is a pathogen specific. It is characterized by memory. This means that our body, when it encounters a pathogen for the first time, produces a response which is called as a primary response, and subsequent encounter with the same pathogen which is highly intensified, which is called as secondary response. This depicts the fact that our body appears to have a memory of the first encounter. So this is the acquired immunity. The primary and secondary immune responses are carried out with the help of two special types of lymphocytes present in our body, that is B lymphocytes and T lymphocytes. The B lymphocytes produce an army of proteins in response to pathogens in our blood to fight with them. These proteins are called antibodies. The T cells themselves do not secrete antibodies but help B cells to produce them. Each antibody molecule has 4 peptide chains, 2 small called light chains and 2 longer called heavy chains. Hence, an antibody is represented as H2L2. Different types of antibodies are produced in our body, that is IgA, IgM, IgE, IgG are some of them. Since these antibodies are found in the blood, the response is called cell mediated immunity. The T lymphocytes mediate cell mediated immunity. So the structure of an antibody molecule is very important. Very often when some human organs like heart, eye, liver, kidney fail to function satisfactorily, transplantation is the only remedy to enable the patient to live normal life. Grafts from such just any source, an animal, another primate or any human beings cannot be made, since the graft would be rejected sooner or later. Tissue matching, blood group matching are essential before undertaking any graft or transplant, and even after this the patient has to take immunosuppressants all his or her life. The body is able to differentiate self and non-self, and the cell mediated immune response is responsible for graft rejection. So the structure of antibody molecule is very important here. From the exam point of view, the diagram will be asked. So today we will stop here. In our next class we will begin with the active and passive immunity, vaccination, immunization. So today we have studied about the public health measures and immunity, where we studied about types of immunity, innate immunity and acquired immunity. Thank you.